Welcome to the Living Force Podcast, a Youtini production. Bonus episode interview with Claudia Gray. On this special episode, the Youtini team talks with Claudia Gray, author of Star Wars Lost Stars, Bloodline, and Master and Apprentice. And now, here are your hosts, Dr. Corey Helton, Eric Eilerson, Dr. Charles Henkel, and Wes Jenkins.
All right, welcome everyone to a special episode of The Living Force. I am one of your hosts, Eric Eilerson, and joined tonight with me, that's the wrong order of those words, but I'm rolling with it. We have a full house tonight. We have Dr. Corey Helton. Hello.
Hello, hello. Always a pleasure.
We have Dr. Charles Henkel. Hey, buddy.
Hello there. What's going on?
Not much. Actually, kidding. Just a lot. Also, Wes Jenkins is here behind the scenes. Hey, man.
Howdy, howdy. How's everyone going?
Oh, I am doing particularly great because the final member of our band tonight is the author of so many amazing books that have gotten, I would say, most of us into the Star Wars Expanded Universe, including Lost Stars, Master and Apprentice, Bloodline, and of course, the newly released today as of release, I believe, The High Republic Into the Dark. Claudia Gray, welcome to the show.
Hi there.
Oh, it is... To say that this interview, I think, has been building since we started Youtini might be a correct statement. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
that's fair. 100%.
Absolutely. And
yeah, no pressure to be.
No, no.
We have we consider it one of our greatest honors to introduce lots of people to Star Wars books, and particularly Lost Stars is the universal recommended book that we tell people to start reading Star Wars books with. And every single person that we've ever had read that book always says it's the best Star Wars book. It is incredible. They absolutely love it. Who is this Claudia Gray person? Their writing is incredible. So it does feel like a bit of a huge honor to get you on the show. So we really appreciate you coming on.
I'm just thrilled you guys enjoyed the book that much. I had some momentary terror when it first came out. Like, oh wait, other people are going to get to read this.
Yeah, it's that book in particular is so funny because it's launched. Like, I feel like everybody since it came out has really had to do sort of makeup of, like, because it was pretty early in the cycle of publishing for Lucasfilm, and it was like it kind of slipped under the radar, I think, for a lot of people. And but everyone universally understands in our community now that it's just kind of one of the best go-to books. So we love recommending it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I think that first Force Friday, there were so many things out there. There were all the things, books and toys and other stuff. It was kind of easy to get lost a little bit in that, but the fans found the book, and that's the only thing that matters.
Oh man, they absolutely did. And let's we're going to take it back a little bit, and then we're going to build more momentum into that first Force Friday, which was so impactful for not only our community but all of Star Wars. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. How did Star Wars for you first come into your life?
Well, I'm going to date myself here by saying I turned 7 the summer that Star Wars came out. Mm-hmm. So I saw it when I was either 6 or 7, which is a really great age. I always say to, like, have your relationship to reality just severed right there.
Yeah.
Gone, no more. And so I was part of that first wave of kids that had the action figures and, the Princess Leia doll and all of these things. I mean, that was really so much of my childhood was loving those movies and having those toys and anticipating what was going to happen next. Mm-hmm. I definitely remember when, Luke, I'm your father was like wait, what? That was a shocker, let me tell you.
Yeah, a little bit, but wow, yeah, that's amazing to have, like, that firsthand experience, because all of us, I think, are always we're racing that high of the first, like, the perfect age in the theater, no spoiler, because I think now to get to a theater for anything Star Wars without spoiling anything is nearly impossible.
Yeah, and there's just so much more coverage of everything because of, apps and the internet, and just there are 90 billion publications covering everything. And so you get all this information, even if it's not spoilers, you still get tons and tons of information about things that are coming out. And, back in the day, literally you were just there like, I have no idea what's about to happen. you just didn't know. And I wouldn't have it any other way for those first 3 movies. It was amazing.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, I love talking to folks that had the pleasure of seeing those films originally, because it does seem like it shaped cinema, it shaped people's childhoods, and like it's such a different era. All of us had such different, like, we were all prequel kids here, right? And that was such a different time to be a Star Wars fan. Like Charles talked about having his his Jar Jar Binks beach towel. I remember that story.
Oh, wow.
That's Eric. He's got the towel. I
Eric
can't
is the one
claim
with the
that.
towel. Oh man.
Oh yeah.
that's
Oh, it's
fantastic.
still in a closet somewhere.
Jar Jar Binks towel. Wow,
Yeah.
I gotta wrap my head around that. I gotta wrap my head. I don't know.
It was great. It was a towel, it was a cape, and then it was hidden for years when I went to college, and now I'm proud of it once more. It's a circle of life.
Now it is framed.
That's
on the
right.
wall.
Somewhere in his apartment. That's right.
Right.
Tell us, you were very early exposed to the films. What about sort of the more literature side of things? Did you always want to be a writer? What was your first sort of experience with like books, comics, and stuff in Star Wars?
I mean, I always wanted to be a writer. I was always interested in telling stories. It unfortunately took me well into adulthood to go like, what if you actually tried that? You know, I don't know why. In retrospect, I can say like, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, when you say like, it would be fun to be a writer when you're a kid, people don't go, that is a great career choice. And you'll be totally financially secure, and you will not be living with your parents when you're 46. You know, you don't hear that. I think I was always very play it safe. And so I had to try and fail at many other things.
Sure.
Wait a minute, this is what I want to do. You know, I began reading Star Wars literature when it came out. I mean, those novelizations, especially the Empire Strikes Back one with Donald F. Gluck.
Yeah.
Like, I read that thing until it was, you know, just like that soft paperback right before it's about to fall apart.
Oh,
awesome.
yes.
Yeah. And I'm blanking out on who wrote the Return of the Jedi novelization at this moment. But
Yeah, it was somebody different. I can't remember the name either, but it was somebody different.
But it was, for some reason, the copy that I got had several blank pages in the back. It was just a paperback. Like, I don't know why that was the case, but for years afterward, you know, when it would come on television, there used to be something called the TV Guide. It was a magazine. That was a thing that used to exist. Anyway, anytime a Star Wars movie would come on, they would run all these ads for it in TV Guide. And so I would cut these pictures out of that or out of, you know, magazines and tape them back there and write my own captions.
That is fantastic.
I would give
amazing.
so much to have that copy. It's probably still around my parents' house somewhere, but that was my first Star Wars writing. Was captions for my own little photo
That's
gallery.
incredible. So I have to ask then, when you first started writing, did you like was Star Wars in your mind at all? Was that ever like a dream, or was it something you even considered, like writing for Star Wars?
Not at all, which is weird, honestly, because, you know, I wrote fan fiction for tons of years. Again, Star Wars for some reason wasn't my thing there, but, you know, and so I'm a huge fangirl, and I get that. And then I began writing, and I knew that an editor I knew, with whom I had shared Star Wars fandom, was working for Star Wars. But at the same time, they'd never done a young adult novel before.
Sure.
Right.
Then again, like, that category hadn't really been defined much before that, honestly. Like, it really only cropped up sort of, you know, in like 2005 or so.
Sure.
So it's still relatively new. And honestly, you know, if it had been identified earlier, one thing that happened before Lost Stars came out, you know, there was a little flack online with people going, you know, we don't need young adult in Star Wars. And it was like,
can't imagine.
All of the movies are about teenagers leaving home to strike out on their own for the first time. It's always been young adult. It always has been.
Right.
But it just never occurred to me that they would do that. So when the email came, it really just came right out of the blue. I really have not thought about it at all.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm like still a little bit shook by those empty pages. It's almost like that was your invitation to continue the story yourself, like to fill in these pages. And now you've come around and been able to do that. That is amazing. you mentioned, that first email coming in. So it sounds like it was an email, but tell us about the first time someone reached out to you and was like, hey, one, you're writing Star Wars, and two, we want you to actually do a project that's going to help launch The Force Awakens and this entire new sequel trilogy.
Yeah, this email arrived, and I remember I was pumping gas and checking phone, and I discovered this. And it was, we're looking at doing a young adult one. They didn't really talk so much about the tie-in to The Force Awakens at that point. I mean, obviously it was connected to that, but it was just, listen, we had an idea. We wanted to talk to you. We know that you love Star Wars, etc. And I was flipping out. I was so excited. The one element, they said it would be due by whatever day. And I was like, oh, they typed the year wrong because it was so short. I was like, oh, they meant to type that. Look at that mistake. Like, it didn't even occur to me they could be serious, but they were.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but that was actually another reason they came to me. I can write quickly, so I guess I'm glad for that in the end. But I was hugely excited. At the time, I thought they would say, okay, here's this outline and you're going to do exactly this. And I was willing to do it,
Sure.
I was excited. I was like, Star Wars, okay. And instead, they really had about a 3-line prompt, which was, you have childhood friends who share this bond, but they wind up on opposite sides of the war. And you have this angry, sort of stormy guy who winds up with the Empire, and this idealistic young girl that winds up with the rebels. And I was like, well, what if the idealistic girl goes with the Empire and it's the angry guys with the rebellion? And they were like, okay. Yeah. And everything after that, I got to come up with. And I wrote an outline and submitted that. And once they liked that, I had the gig.
That's incredible. What a fantastic prompt, too. Man, for a young adult novel, that's Star Wars and everything you need right there. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And I'm trying to now think, like, if Thane and Sienna switch, and then my brain can't do it. Like, they're so entrenched.
Yeah, totally.
And what an alternate reality.
But it kind of, I just felt like it made it more interesting to ask what a fundamentally sort of good and optimistic person would do finding herself in the Imperial Starfleet. And also, it's always the person who's kind of angry and sees the flaws who's going to turn against the system. That's...
Yeah, totally.
I don't know. Anyway, it worked out, so I'm happy.
Yeah. I think it's very safe to say it worked out. As we said earlier, Lost Stars is continuously our number one most recommended book at Youtini for both new readers and, oh my God, you haven't read this yet, followed legitimately only by Master and Apprentice. And I think that you tend to write books that have these characters that are so easy to latch on to, regardless of maybe their circumstances. Like the plot is amazing, but the characters just are somewhat addictive. Do you intentionally set out to write books that are so, I guess, character heavy, for lack of a better phrase, or is that just kind of your natural style?
That's my natural style. Because, I mean, I love the Star Wars universe. I love it. But for me, the whole thing is, what would it be like if I were there? You know? How would I feel about it? What would I think? That is what excites me about it. So I don't want to sort of look at it from the outside. I want to dig in and really ask, what would you think? What would your assumptions be? And it was so fun when I was first getting started, particularly with Lost Stars, because it was sort of the first time I was getting to do this. And I remember at one point I said that Thane's family had a hangar. And it sort of came back, it was like, hangars are things that have licenses and regulations and whatever. I was like, not in Star Wars. Everybody owns stuff that flies. Like, hangars like a garage. That's it. Or I was especially happy. I was trying to come up with the name of the ship. And, why is Millennium Falcon so cool? It's cool. Why? We don't know. It just is. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, wait a minute. Don't ask what's cool to you. The captain's a Wookiee. What's cool to Wookiees? Right. It's trees. So it's the mighty oak apocalypse. Because to her, that's the most badass name.
Sick.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that makes complete sense. I love it. And And it's a cool way because I love talking to so many writers about Star Wars because it seems like all of you think about Star Wars just a bit differently, like very Avar Chris Forcey, right? Like with Charles writing, like everyone sees the Force differently, everyone kind of writes character differently, which I love. And of course, speaking of that, now we will let the cat out of the bag after years of secrecy. The High Republic, it's launched. It is here. The reception has been incredible across the board. So
it has exceeded our expectations, I have to say.
Yeah, let's just make that blanket question. What's your reaction been to this? Because I know you're a month in technically with your own project, but obviously like Kevin has told us like you're all in Slack all the time together. You're obviously keyed into everything. How has it been for you this first month?
It's been incredible. All of it has come through the filter from being on deadline with another book, during which time you cannot experience true joy.
Yeah, you can't enjoy anything. This is 2020 and 2021. There's no joy left.
So, it's there, and I'm so grateful for it because, of course, it gives me this big rush to see how much people are loving it. Mm-hmm. And like they've said, we are all in the Slack, and it's as important to me that people like Charles's stuff and Justina's stuff and Cav's stuff as it is that they do mine. So seeing them get all this love and all this fan appreciation has really, really been a bright spot in a whole lot of rewriting, let me tell you.
Yeah, I can imagine.
A book that is not Star Wars, I just want to say that up front. So.
Yeah, it's got to be like you're at a party, but you're still working. You hear the party outside. You're like, I bet that's great. I bet that's a lot of fun. I just got to be in the study for another hour.
Kind of, yeah. It's like, I'm going to get to go to the party very soon. And in fact, I expect to turn the book in. We're taping this a little bit before release day. I expect to turn it in 2 days before release day.
Oh, my gosh.
So, what a week.
Crazy.
Oh, my God. That'll be...
It's going to be a big week. It's going to be an awesome week. I'm excited about it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we're excited for you. And, you mentioned kind of what it's like seeing Justina and Kevin and some of the other authors involved, get to fully experience this with their products released. And we mentioned that we recently talked to Kevin, and we talked to him a lot about how collaborative this process was for Project Luminous and the High Republic. And it seems like this more so than really anything before has been a true team effort. So for you personally, how was this process different working with so many different people?
It's really interesting. I mean, very, very grateful for this group of writers, not only for the experience of the High Republic. I mean, in some ways, we're just at this point like professional counselors and allies too, in terms of the other decisions we're making and other things that we're looking at doing. It's really, really valuable to have that perspective. And it's great when we're able to bounce ideas off each other because a lot of ideas do get so much richer for that. And the characters, I think, are richer from having us, like you said, we all have slightly different perspectives and have slightly different ways of tackling things. And I think that's richer for the universe that we're going to present, that it is going to have sort of different flavors and modes and viewpoints. And when we have things, a lot of times it'll be like, oh, I was going to send the ship here. And they're like, wait, I was going to send that ship there or whatever. You have these moments inevitably. There's no way not to.
Right.
I think it was Justina who described it in one interview. She's like, it's like you're working in a kitchen and somebody's making duck l'orange and somebody else is making hot fudge cake. And you're all got the same ingredients and you're trying to reach past each other. And also the kitchen's on fire. But
I can hear her voice as you say that too.
Yeah. But in the end, somebody comes out with the duck l'orange and it's great. And somebody comes out with hot fudge cake and it's great. And also we try to get together and turn those conflicts into opportunities. And it's amazing how often you could say, well, these two things can be true if X happens. And then X is super interesting and puts a new spin on everything. Cav is known for saying, just like we planned it. So hopefully the goal will be that you won't even know which things we actually planned and which things we worked out. So it's like, hey, it's like we planned it. It's amazing how often that's some of the best stuff, really.
Yeah. I blame it on the accent. It's just trustworthy in a way. You know, you're like, oh yeah, that sounds right. Of course.
I have to ask, do you read his Slack messages in an accent?
I hear them in his voice, kind of. Yes.
We have a couple folks on the team that are in the UK, and I read all of their messages in my head happen in the accent. I don't know how that's possible, but it somehow does.
Yeah, every once in a while he'll use a Britishism that we're like, wait, what?
Yes.
mostly we speak cabin by now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
awesome.
good. It's my next Duolingo course. I'm very excited.
Yeah, due to lockdown, I think I'm in like day 260 of Italian. We're working
Oh my
on it.
God.
Wow, that's incredible.
You have all this time clearly with all these books and everything.
Well,
Awesome.
I just do 2 minutes a day. But anyway.
Absolutely.
I have to ask, you're one of the, of all your colleagues, you're kind of unique in that you've had the opportunity to write in lots of different eras. You've written in the prequel era, the OT era, and this sequel era. What is it like, given those experiences, to write in this completely new era of the High Republic?
It's both liberating and a lot more work at the same time. On the one hand, you're not confined by other canon. We're all creating it ourselves.
Right.
But also, we have to create it all ourselves. And, one of the joys of writing in the Star Wars universe, I always used to say was, I don't have to think like, oh, what would this ship be? I just send a note. I'm like, what would a ship be? And then it comes back like, here's a blueprints by Pablo Hidalgo. And you can see what all of it is and exactly how it works and what's going on. Or I could say, like, I need an alien race that has 4 arms. And they're like, here you go. There it is. Whereas in this case, we have to sit down and go, okay, what will the ships be?
Yeah.
And so, but now we've got it in place, and now it's working. And we've actually talked about how great it's going to be, because so much of the stuff we keep straight or not within our own heads, we're like, now the fans will start to build wikis. Yeah. We can just look at that. That'd be so awesome.
That's fantastic.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Nobody can remember all of it all the time. I mean, it especially when you don't remember just the final version. You remember the first idea, the second idea, the thing that everybody vetoed, and then the way that it changed. And then sometimes you're like, wait, which one did we wind up with?
Yeah, totally.
So it's going to be great. Like, so Wikipedia, we're looking to you.
Challenge has been thrown.
It's certainly been super interesting seeing these projects kind of happen alongside visual projects like comics and stuff. That's sort of unique, and like particularly because it's all a new era, because we're like imagining these things in our head, and then we have a comic that shows the Starlight Beacon, right? So it's been really cool to see what that stuff looks like.
Yeah, it's so great to have that comic art, and also just the art that we got from these incredible people at Lucasfilm. Even when we were still generating the first ideas, months and months ago, they'd be like, well, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Sometimes be like, well, that's not the right alien, but it's a great alien. So
yeah, sure.
It's really, really wonderful to have people at that caliber of talent helping provide inspiration and visual stuff to go along with it.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, and it's we're definitely all hoping and praying for the Art of the High Republic book from Abrams or something coming out someday. But it's a great point, because we've never had a release like this. Period, I think is safe to say. But also the releases we've had to have so much concept art to come out. Like, I knew I loved Loden Greatstorm the day I saw his concept picture. And it was so great to be able to read that book, and then of course to read your book with Reith's picture, in different outfits and different forms because of all that. But
yeah, although the Reith on the cover, I'm kind of like, who's that dude?
It's a bit different, yeah.
It's a little square dot. In my head, it's Tom Holland.
That is fantastic.
I need to. So I have already read Into the Dark for the review. I'm going to reread the entire thing now, because that image now is so perfect. I watched
that hit Eric in his eyes. Like, I saw that hit him like all at one time.
Oh, I'm a sucker for fan casts. Like, I think it was Claudia. I think it was you for Master and Apprentice. Didn't you put out Tumblr posts of fan casts for some of the original characters?
Yeah, and I'll do it for Into the Dark too, and I have it on a Pinterest board usually.
Fantastic.
It's my favorite thing.
Yeah, I always fan cast. That's half the fun.
That's awesome. So speaking of all these original characters, like you have created a number of incredible original people, from Thane, Sienna, Ransom Costurfo, Rael Averos, who we mentioned on the show an odd amount of times, and now more with Wreath and Leox, Orla, Geode. So many awesome Into the Dark characters. Do you find that you tend to enjoy writing original characters more than pre-existing, or do they both kind of occupy different spaces?
It's different spaces, because on the one hand, obviously with your own people, you're free to go where you want to go. You set up who they are, what they sound like. You get to develop all of that. Yeah. But when you have the original people, one, you already have all this great background, and you can, if it's in film or TV, you can actually listen to the voice, which really helps with writing dialogue. So
sure, yeah.
There are benefits to doing it each way, but I really do enjoy working with original characters in known universes. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It is really great, and I think that it's always fun to hear how the audiobook narrators will give voice to your characters, which is why honestly Rael is such a big hit with us, because it's a very distinct audio performance.
Yes, it is.
Which is
really he sounds very Southern, and I didn't know until I heard him that I'm hearing in my head as Australian.
Okay.
I was like, whoa. But Southern works too.
Yeah, it does.
That's not too far. Not too far away. We do have Australian country singers, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Although I do gotta say, on that note too, from the first interview you gave about Leox being Matthew McConaughey to that portrait, it is the most helpful, accurate mental voice I've ever had reading a book.
I think he wound up with a little side of the dude from The Big Lebowski. But yeah, literally that was the thing. I wanted to have a captain of a ship who was, and a co-pilot or navigator who was a little bit scoundrelly. But I was like, but he can't be Han Solo. What is a really distinctive thing for this? And then just something in my room was like, give Matthew McConaughey a spaceship. And I was like, oh, yes, this has got to happen.
All right.
Exactly.
Oh man.
If you didn't do it, I was going to, and you did it much better. So thank you. But speaking of Into the Dark, you mentioned before that the pitch for Lost Stars really came to you in an email while you were pumping gas. What about Into the Dark, though? Where did this pitch originate from? Is this something that you brought to the table and said, hey, I'm thinking about this? Or what's the whole story there?
No, I mean, it was more, we knew that as we introduced this story, we were figuring out what was happening in the beginning of the story. We knew, okay, we're going to want an adult book, a comic, a young adult book. And so it was sort of figuring out which characters in this, in this group that we were putting together, who needs to be where? What do we need to see? What are different events and areas and planets and etc. that everybody can touch on. So it was more sort of, we all built up this beginning and then began sort of pulling out what each of us was going to need to tell our parts of the story. So does that answer the question? That seems like the origin of it to me, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the whole thing. I think everything we've heard and seen in the Disney Plus, spot that they put out and everything about the High Republic is it really does sound like they assembled a team, but then the stories and the characters, everything was very organic. I mean, it just kind of presented itself from the brain trust, if you will, of Project Luminous.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to list that in the Slack channel so we can all laugh very hard.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, of course, speaking of high ideas and things like that, it seems like a lot more scholarly ideas come through Wreath as opposed to a lot of other Star Wars protagonists. And I want to ask you a little bit about the origin of that, because I know you all obviously made these stories and characters together. But was it important for you to have a Jedi that was way more about, the research and the books? He always talks about spending time in the archives, than to have your saber slashing kind of more aggro person who's a little more like other characters in the book.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that gets me is you take these children when they're babies. They come to the Jedi temples as babies or very young toddlers, and you just don't have the fullest sense of somebody's personality at that point. And, is going around being a huge swashbuckling hero something you actually want to do? And like, I love reading this. I love watching it. I admire the Jedi Knights. I think that's amazing. And when I try to imagine myself doing any of that, it's like, no, do not want, no. Yeah, Reith's thing about the bugs that he says in the beginning of the book, I may or may not have said similar things.
Awesome.
And it just stands to reason that you would have people that come up that have a really different temperament and set of talents, and those are still of use to the order. And the balance I was trying to strike with him is, this is not a guy who wants to rush in with his lightsaber to, go to fight out every single situation that could come up. Doesn't mean he can't do it, or that he won't do it when he's called on. He doesn't lack courage. He doesn't lack ability, but where he wants to be and what he wants to do is kind of the antithesis of what we usually see Jedi doing. But again, we know there are the archives, and we know Jocasta Nu. We know that these people are there. There has to be room to show different kinds of knights within the order.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because I realized that as I was reading it, that whenever we see these more bookish characters, it's always because they can't do the physical things. And then, like you just mentioned, Jocasta Nu, Charles gave her a lightsaber gun in the comics, so they can take care of business when they need to. And I really like that part of Reith as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I loved that with Jocasta Nu, and I like the idea that you would have these capacities, and he's just interesting to me. I hope other people will agree. It's always a little bit of a risk going, hey, you want a bookworm? We'll see.
Yeah. Here's a story about a whole bunch of Knights of the Round Table. What about a nerd? Let's put a nerd in this one.
But I may relate to that nerd.
Absolutely.
I feel like in the swaths of fandom, I'm not alone.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We say all the time that the more types in the way people look and act, the more types of people we have in books, like the more people can feel like, hey, I can be in Star Wars. So like that's like we're all about that representation, like in all sorts of forms. So like it's really it's good to see nerds in the Jedi. Of course, they were nerds. Like they have like the most comprehensive archives in the galaxy, right? There has to be
and
librarians.
Honestly, like if I had to say where that character began, I guess it was the idea of like the boy Hermione Granger, because Hermione is exactly that character. She's always in the book. She always cares about that, whatever. But when everything goes down, she's there.
Yeah.
Hermione's there. She does not back down.
She's a hero. Absolutely.
Tom Holland plays Hermione in Star Wars. Into the Dark, available now wherever books are sold.
Oh wow, yeah. Don't put that as the tagline.
Let's see. How many IPs can we interrupt with at one time? That's fantastic. Well, speaking a little bit of the collaborative nature of these projects, like I'm sure that you in particular have faced challenges because you've written all sorts of different types of stories. Like, were there any particular challenges or obstacles, I guess, that you faced in particular with writing your story that was maybe different because it was this new era or this new project?
Yeah, I mean, this is where we get into the whole, like, am I giving too much away? But originally we sort of had one sequence of events, and there was a big event that originally was supposed to happen in my book that we decided, and I agree, it did need to come later. But it also, like, I had really designed a lot of the plot to center around that. And it's like, oh, that thing isn't even happening now. What can happen?
Yeah.
And, we ended up coming up with the right thing, and I was able to restructure it that way. But it was a big moment of like, oh no. It's like this really, I really thought this was sort of the thing, and it's not the thing. Is that vague enough for you? But but again, like that was to be expected with a lot of the very first books and comics, because you're still getting a sense of how to pace this and how all of us are working together with it. So, I think it was pretty much inevitable.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. When you say the first books and comics, I get that little tingle about like this. There's so much in it. I think we're also wrapping our heads around, from the outside at least, like how massive this thing really is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we are too. It's like, wait, how much are we writing? How much are we writing? Oh my God.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit with Kevin. Like when they announced what Project Luminous was, we're like, this is so vague, and it's hard to say what this is ever going to be. And then they announced the High Republic, and that was fantastic.
We
like,
thought
yes,
it was
a
a
new era.
book. I remember those days. Like, oh, it's probably one book with a bunch of short stories, and that's it.
Yeah, like
that was a really common theory. And they kept putting off the announcement of when it was going to happen. And we're like, oh, come on.
That was more supporting evidence for the speculation of the short story thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not on Twitter any longer, but somebody in the Slack, I forget who it was, showed a tweet where somebody said, I think Project Luminous is a bunch of tweets and announcements saying how much we're going to love Project Luminous.
That sounds accurate.
That's it.
I thought that was really funny because we're like, we get why you would think that at this point. We do.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and like then when they finally did tell us that it was going to be a huge multi-year project, it's like, holy smokes, this is way bigger than anybody expected. And honestly, the delay, I mean, the books kept getting delayed too. Like I think they changed at least once or maybe twice, where they put everything off till the new year. Maybe that worked in its
COVID thing because there was right when a lot of stuff was supposed to go to press, like you literally didn't have people who could go into factories to do it. And so, and then once you couldn't do that, they just went ahead and restructured the whole thing. But I think Into the Dark originally would have come out last October.
Exactly. So it was so it gave them a lot of time to market, it seems like. And then the launch of this thing just hit like a ton of bricks. We have multiple books, multiple comics. It's all happening so fast. And maybe now looking back, maybe that was a good thing that it got delayed the way that it did, because it certainly has made the impact, at least for us, I think, a little harder, which has been awesome.
Yeah.
Everything's gone so well. I have to assume that must be the way it needed to happen. That must be it.
Yep. Just also, like you planned it.
Yeah. And also I think they originally the plan was really to have something that would happen at Celebration. Last year. And then of course there was to be no Celebration.
Sure.
So, and you couldn't produce the book. So it was like, okay, let's leave it.
Yeah.
Cool. It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear all of that in hindsight now, because we were so in the dark before, and now we're going back into the dark. I did the thing. So one of the last questions that we have for you is something that we like to ask all of our first-time guests here on the show, and it really centers around the idea that Star Wars is a story of legacy. And yes, it's the legacy of the Skywalkers, but it's also every individual character has a legacy within the larger story. And similarly, I think everyone who is a creator, of any form, also has a legacy within Star Wars and within the fandom. For you in particular, as one of those creators, what would you hope for your legacy to be when you're done with Star Wars? What do you hope that people remember you in particularly for and really associate with your work?
Wow, that's a good question that I haven't really thought of in exactly that way before. Well, I guess this actually reveals to me my true answer to one of the questions you asked earlier, because the first thing that's coming to mind is I hope that some of my original characters kind of have a life that goes on through the franchise, that some of them are picked up and show up in other things, which has happened to some degree, and which I love. And I guess that's the main thing, that I would like some of those to be really remembered.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I remember turning the page and finding Casterfo's name in Resistance Reborn and being like, oh my gosh, like it's book characters growing beyond their books, which I think is something that's still kind of new in the new canon.
Or the Contessa.
My favorite.
The Contessa in From a Certain Point of View, The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. My favorite is from Lost Stars. There's a character Yendor.
Yes.
And he also appears in Bloodline. And that is my very good friend Rodney. Backwards.
That's my favorite thing people do in Star Wars is put that's my bucket list item is Kyr Nesrelli or something gets put in a Star Wars book. That's so fun.
But Yendor has showed up in a couple of other books as well. And Rodney, I let him know. I was like, yeah, when I was able to say I was writing a Star Wars book, I was like, yeah, I've got you in there. I've got a cameo. I didn't reveal that, like, oh no, it's a whole storyline with this character whose speech patterns are very like Rodney's speech patterns,
Cool. That's awesome.
et cetera. So he was going around. I've told this story before, but it's a good story.
Yeah.
He's been going around forever going, I'm Yendor of Ryloth, I'm Yendor. All his coworkers know this. Well, anyway, they went online one night, a couple of them without him, and to look up Yendor. And they found some fan art of Yendor. And it was, of course, erotic fan art.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
Oh, they printed out a lot of copies of and like papered his cubicle with. So for him to find in the morning.
Oh my God.
So that may not be the legacy I was thinking of,
but it is permanent. Oh my gosh! Yes.
Yeah. It's out there. It's out there. So, but yeah, I would like some of them to have a life in the greater galaxy.
Well,
I can certainly say that from the outside looking in, with our, we're just a couple of dumb white dudes that like Star Wars, right? But like on the outside looking in, as not being like really trained in literature, it seems like your characterizations seems to really what draws new people in and what brings us back. So it feels appropriate that you hope that that's your legacy. Maybe we didn't even realize that's what it is, but you're sort of a superstar about characterizations, it seems like. And if I think I've seen people will read Lost Stars in our community, in our Discord, and on social media, and I think we must see once or twice a week that they hope Sienna Rhee or Thing Kyrell show up in a future production or a film or a book or something. Something about your characters, you're just so good at crafting these legacy-like characters that almost lend themselves. It seems like it's impossible to me that will not happen at some kind of large scale at some point.
I've even pitched stuff. I'd really love to do something with Nash Windrider, who
son of Alderaan.
He's in a very interesting place at the end of Lost Stars.
It does.
I would love to do that, but from your mouth to God's ears, or His ears, I suppose, as the case may be.
It's so funny now that because Lost Stars was so early. It's so early in the publishing cycle of canon, and it's incredible to me that book has had such a huge impact on canon and has the ability. It fits in so nicely to all the existing story. It really does have unlimited possibilities. So you maybe didn't intend to do that, seeing how it was so early in the publishing cycle, but I hope some other writers can help pick up that. Maybe you. I hope you get to do that in the future.
Be great. That would be great.
Yeah. Well, and as we wrap up here, I wanna end on an admittedly very selfish, very sappy note, by thanking you for Lost Stars specifically, because that is the first canon book I read after not reading Star Wars book for 10 years, and that's why I help run this company, is because of that book singularly.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's the whole reason I'm here, and it is when I reread at least once a year. I own a few. I own less copies than I used to because I lend them out quite a bit. But thank you for all your work in Star Wars. And anytime a Claudia Gray byline comes up, our Discord, our Slack just lights up. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Well, thank you guys, seriously, for passing on the love. I truly do appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad. And for our last little bit of love here, so other people want to send some love. You said you're not on Twitter anymore, but where online can people find you, find your work, and is there anything other than Into the Dark that you can speak about coming up? I don't think we're not going to push you, but just if you do, here's your moment.
Nothing Star Warsy, which I believe is all the Living Force is interested in. But
that's okay. Other projects, people like your work regardless.
Yeah.
Well, just last month came out House of L. Shadow Threat, which is my first graphic novel.
Nice.
Awesome.
It's the beginning of a trilogy. The book that I'm trying to turn in right now is my first murder mystery.
Oh, interesting.
I believe it's going to be called The Murder of Mr. Wickham sometime in 2022, but we'll see.
I remember reading that publishing announcement. That's involved with the Austin characters, right?
Yeah, it's an Austin characters Jane Christie scenario mashup, basically.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Oh my God. So many people are getting that for Christmas.
Characters and worlds and running with them is supposed to be what I'm doing.
Awesome.
And I do expect to be working on some more High Republic stuff but I can't say what yet.
Sure.
Yeah.
Completely understandable. Well, on behalf of all of us in our community, thank you, one, for giving up your evening to chat with us. This was an absolute blast, and I hope that everyone is having a great time today picking up Lost. Wow, we said it so many times. Into the Dark today. I guarantee some people are already finished with it. I'm feeling like some Harry Potter midnight release vibes with this book for some people when it hits their Kindle. Thanks again, and everyone, thank you for listening. Claudia Gray, thanks for having me on The Living Force.
There is no hatred. There is joy. There is no division. There is union. There is no apathy. There is passion. There is no gatekeeping. There is community. This is the Youtini Star Wars Fan Code. Embrace it, live by it, and above all, trust in the Living Force. That's all for this week. Join our community and surround yourself with like-minded fans by visiting us online at youtini.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you.